of months. You may well remember that I spoke to one Loughborough mum who survives purely on a diet of boiled rice. For the past 12 years now, Micaela Stafford has suffered from sickness, migraines and diarrhoea, and not knowing what the problem was, she decided to try cutting out certain foods. And after going on what's called an exclusion diet, she started to feel just a bit better. So for the past 3 years now, she's basically just eaten rice. For breakfast, for lunch, for dinner. And Julie Mayer went off to meet Micaela. This was back in May now.
Mentally, it's really, really difficult. There's some days when I really feel as though I can't cope with it. Socialising is the most difficult thing. To go out and see all your friends, like, have their meals arrive and you think, I want to eat that.
How does your husband cope with it? Because obviously he eats as normal.
Yeah, he eats as normal and he has separate meals. 2 meals are made in the kitchen every night. It's like I have my side of the kitchen where my food's prepared. He has his side, which is full of gluten and fats and things like that I can't go near. Even breaking up the bread and feeding the ducks and then touching my own food will cause me a problem. I do worry, and I do worry that am I going to be able to get foods in? Am I going to be able to get the nutrients? I can't live forever just on rice.
Well, on that very same programme, many of you got in touch with me to react to Micaela's story. John from Wigston, for example, called about his own wife who has a similar condition.
Well, what happened when she was going through a hormonal change, it seemed to kick off then. What actually did kick it off big time was she was suffering from neuralgia, and she had some tablets from the dentist, which mixed with some other tablets that she was taking from the doctors at the same time, and she had a violent reaction. She was in hospital for 2 weeks, and then we found out afterwards she was intolerant to a lot of stuff, and she's hypersensitive to a lot of drugs, and but she had intolerances to foods as well, and she also had to live on rice for a long time. We can fully understand what Micaela's going through, but I'd just like to say there is light at the end of the tunnel, because the wife now, she's not fully there, but she can eat, 75% of foods that she could eat before she had this attack.
And how did she achieve that, John?
Just slowly introduce things.
Well, there is light at the end of the tunnel. That came in the form of a woman from Reading who, after hearing about Micaela, got in touch with her and offered some help. Her name's Diana Earnshaw, and she's a clinical nutritionist who put Micaela on to a new diet 3 weeks ago. Well, we'll talk to Diana in just a few minutes' time. Before that, though, let's just hear how Micaela's doing now. BBC Radio Leicester's Ben Jackson went to catch up with her to find out how the new diet's going.
My husband took me down to Reading, and the journey was pretty difficult because by that stage I was not very well at all. She put me on this diet and she said things are going to get an awful lot worse before they get better. It was terrible. It was quite a difficult few days, and she warned me how it would be. She told me exactly how it would be, and it was.
What was the diet made up of?
It initially started with nothing but bone broth. It looks like this.
There it is. OK, so that's roasted chicken carcasses boiled up?
Yes, that's it. And it makes this juice look.
Yeah.
It's got bits of broccoli and onion, and it's also got a special salt in it because there's lots of minerals. And I lived for 2 days on nothing else but this. You feel that you've swapped rice for bone broth forever. But you haven't. But at that point, you feel as though you have. I had a huge amount of support from Diana. I just couldn't have done it without her. She is one very, very special lady.
But you're eating more than this now, aren't you?
Yes. The stock now goes to make a soup that I have at lunchtime. Mm-hmm. I can put other vegetables in it and chicken in it, and then I puree it down. It's still a very easy to tolerate food because everything's been pureed down, but all the goodness is there. So it's actually feeding me.
Because you look really well. You look happy.
I do feel happy, and I do feel really well, and I just feel like Diana's just given me my life back. It's just like before, my thoughts were so gloomy. It's like I was in so much pain and so suffering, and nobody seemed to understand what was wrong and why I was in this state. And to be honest, it sounds horrible, but my thoughts were, I wanted to die, because the pain was so horrendous and the suffering was so unbearable. It's like there were days when I was up and there were days when I was in bed, and the overall illness was so unbearable, I just didn't want to carry on with it. Now, I'm suddenly thinking, wow, I think I've got my life back. Is this real?
You're having lamb chops tonight.
Yeah, lamb chops.
See, look at your face. You look so happy. And of course, for you, you're rediscovering food. You've already had you had roast beef at the weekend. That go okay?
I had a slice of cold roast beef. Everything that I eat has to be organic. And I had cold roast beef, and just the taste and the flavour, it's just out of this world. It is so, so wonderful. The most amazing thing that I have been able to tolerate is eggs. I have not eaten eggs for 12 years, and eggs were sending me wappy. If I had an egg, right, I was so poorly afterwards. I used to, have this terrible headache and hallucinations on eggs. I did weird things on eggs. It was so difficult to tolerate. And on day 6, when Diana said, it's time to introduce eggs, I was very, very nervous. And we started with 2 egg yolks, mixed in a tiny little bit of coconut milk to begin with. It didn't taste very nice. It was very sweet. But I was just amazed that I seemed to be okay afterwards. And then we tried 2 eggs and 1 yolk, and then 2 eggs and 2 yolks. And now every morning I've been having omelette for breakfast with little bits of chicken in it. And it's just wonderful. It's just so lovely.
You can hear the joy in her voice, can't you? That magician, it seems, the nutritionist who's helped Micaela, is Diana Earnshaw, and joins me on the line. Diana, do you know, you do this for a living. You help people like this all the time. But to hear Micaela's reaction like that, it must just make your heart leap with joy.
It certainly does. I'm sitting here smiling to myself. I mean, it is really amazing how quickly Micaela has responded to this diet.
Well, good for you, and I know she wants to express her gratitude to you, because after years of just eating rice, now she's rediscovering. And I love my food. I just can't imagine life without flavour, without texture, without taste. And you've given that back to her. Can you give us some idea, Diana, just how you've gone about doing that in words of one syllable? Because nutritionally, I know it's extremely complicated.
Yes, there were 3 main target areas. It was very important to reinstate the good bacteria in her insides.
Are those the sorts of things we hear about in those yoghurty drinks?
That's right, those things, the good bacteria, the beneficial bacteria. That was very important because that was out of balance. And because she'd been like that for so long, and eating rice for so long, her gut was probably in a very bad state. So we had to set about healing Micaela's insides. And then after that, we had to ensure that she got nutrition as quickly and as easily as possible. And in doing that, I had to start her with very, very simple foods that are absorbed very easily. And that's what we did, and she responded.
Well, it seems on the face of it, when you look at it in such a short sort of space of time, to be nothing short of a miracle, Diana. But I know food allergies is something that many parents have concerns about. We hear much more about it in the news these days as well. And understandably, people have considerable worries when it comes to food intolerances these days, don't they?
Yes, they do. I think, what I tend to do is work with traditional ideas more than the conventional ones. And I think if people could just perhaps look back a few years and see the sort of foods that we were eating at that time, and try and put some of those back into our modern diets, that would help enormously. when we're perhaps just giving our children not exactly the right foods for their beneficial bacteria to thrive on.
And I know, Micaela talks about eating organically, but I know you're a huge fan of cooking from ingredients as opposed to anything processed.
Absolutely. I started Micaela on the organic food because I think at the moment that's the best for her, but there will come a time when she can eat out and eat, non-organic foods, although I still think organic would be the best. But there will come a time when she can tolerate other foods as well. But it just seems to be the right way to go to start with.
Well, you've opened so many doors to her. I wonder where she's going to go. She'll be a TV chef before we know it, I'm sure. I know you've got a website, haven't you, Diana? If people want some more information about eating healthily and naturally, what is the web address?
The web address is www.yourgoodhealth-naturally.co.uk.
Wonderful stuff. Thank you very much, Diana. Brilliant. Lovely to talk to you, and our sincere gratitude on Micaela's behalf. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All the best.